Nicol's Commentary, Volume 3, Quaremead, Ugley, October 10th, 1945, a law or a note on the law of fate. This is the second of two videos from this group meeting. Notice that the law of fate that belongs to the essence is composed of fewer laws than the laws governing the personality. This corresponding to the rising in the ray of creation, or the microcosm, to that level called the planetary level, which is under 24 laws. Notice also that this is called in the work development. You might think that development means increase of laws, but if we take the level of the moon in the ray of creation, it is under 96 orders of laws, and this is no development. On the contrary, it is a descent into increasing and useless perplexity. All development consists in becoming more internal in your understanding through seeing what you are like and separating from it, and at the same time it signifies a raising of the whole level of your being in terms of the ray of creation to a level where fewer laws exist. The work teaches that it is possible for a man to reach the level of the sun in himself. As you know, in the ray of creation, the sun, as it is called, is under 12 orders of law, and such a man has real I, or master, at work in him. That is, he obeys these highest principles concealed in man's psychology. But this is very far from us at present. At present, we're all concerned with separating from the personality and seeing what the personality in ourselves is like. And one way of seeing ourselves is, as was said, seeing unnecessary emotions. Do you imagine that worrying is an unnecessary emotion? Do you think that feeling rather tragic or tragical about everything is an unnecessary emotion? Do you think that being very concerned about the way someone is going or the way the world itself is going maybe possibly belong to the category of unnecessary emotions? The work says that all negative emotions are unnecessary, whether they are anxious or worrying or what you might call dutiful emotions. Some people very anxious to do this work often say to themselves like this: I believe in this work. I believe it will help me. I would like so much to know what it is I have to give up. They ask this question anxiously or even tragically, as it were. They clasp their hands and say, what if I have to give up? Well, the answer is, it is exactly this clasping of the hands, this tragic attitude that they have to give up. They have to see that they are identified with being anxious. And this is the very thing that they have to sacrifice. But do you expect a person who is very identified with himself to understand what is meant? This is the great difficulty in teaching the work. When people say they will give up, for example, their will, they make a great mistake. They speak as if they had will, as if they could give it up as a final act, as something finished or forever. All this is illusion. Of what use is it to give up what one has not got? And what is it that these people have to see, first of all, before they even begin to understand what the work is about? They have to see, through long observation of themselves, that they have not got will, but many different wills. Each I, in turn, has a different will. So how can they give up will? The work says there is only one thing that we can give up: our own suffering. But do you imagine that people see this quite easily? Do you imagine that it is something quite simple to give up your mechanical suffering? And yet it is the only thing that we can give up at our present level. Give up your suffering. Cease to suffer uselessly. Does that connect with your negative emotions, with your self-pity, with your private ideas about your undetected significance? Yes, it is all this that is concerned with your suffering. When you have done some act of this kind on yourself for one moment, you will feel a lightness and a happiness that will show you that the work is quite right in what it says. You will see for yourself the truth of what the work teaches, and no one can do this work unless he begins to see the truth of what this work teaches through his own experience. Now, to give up one's suffering demands that one does not identify with all that one is at present. It demands that one begins to see that one has an acquired psychology that reacts in a certain way mechanically from which one is beginning to separate by personal and sincere work on oneself. And this is a movement towards the real side of oneself, the internal side, the essential side, which is under 24 laws of fate. Fate is what it should be. Fate is what we should be. Everyone is created to be something through fate. And the more he or she becomes this essential individual that they were created to be, the more they pass under fewer laws. Fate really means that which is primarily ordained, one's own real destiny. When a man begins to will this work, when a man begins to will this work into his life, he will inevitably pass towards his inner growth, his inner destiny. Certainly, he may become something quite different from what he was in life. Many accidental things that belong to his personality, and especially to his false personality may fall away. Such a man will be doing the work and reach a point that it is possible for certain people to reach, a point which gives him true center of gravity and his true being. He will then no longer be an artificial man, an invented man on the surface, but he will become a real man. The object of this work is to make us real men and real women, not invented people governed by false personality, for as such, nothing that happens to us, or let us say very little, really belongs to us at all. If you remember the principles of this work, and if you try to put your will, such as you have, from eyes that wish to work, into following these principles, into following certain rules that you were taught, especially about your wrong talking, your inner and outer, if you begin to obey the central idea that you must, for example, remember yourself, it may be said that you are giving up your ordinary will, such as it is, following the work by meditating on it, by thinking about it and bringing it into your life every day in a fresh way. You will begin to pass towards the real side of you. And so out of the law of accident, from one point of view, you do not have to give up anything, nor do you have to be told to do something. So much of this work consists of not doing something that you always did. But here lies a long struggle to understand how very gentle the influences of this work are. You have, for example, to give up your negative emotions. What does it mean to give up your negative emotions? It means, in the first place, to follow what the work says. But how can you give them up? First of all, you have to observe them and then try not to identify with them. Most people, about 5 minutes after they get up in the morning, begin to identify with negative emotions. That is, they identify with their habitual personal reactions to life. They do not observe what happens to them because they have no self-observation in the work sense. They let themselves go. They do not remember themselves. They do not hold themselves together internally. In other words, they instantly fall asleep on rising, They pass the day in attracting to themselves situations and things that would not come to them if they remembered themselves. Half an hour's work in the morning can make a great difference all day long. You can see for yourself what it means to be under the law of accident and the law of destiny or fate. But people have to find this out for themselves. People often open letters the moment they get up. Why? I wonder. Is it necessary to be plunged immediately into the accidents of life without having formed in yourself a certain resistance to life? Without having a certain sacred moment with yourself of self-remembering so that life and all its accidents do not instantly rush in and occupy the whole psychology?